A very good evening to you. You're watching Biz First in Focus. Today we are going to discuss about the free trade agreements and the future of ETCA here in Sri Lanka. We are going to talk to Mr. Lasantha Wickramasinghe, who is the Secretary at the Association of IT Professionals in Sri Lanka. Now, you might be wondering why we are talking to an IT professional regarding the free trade agreements or even the ETCA. Mr. Wickramasinghe has been very vocal on a few of our programs. In fact, you were on Face the Nation and Newsline as well. The points that you elaborate seems to be capturing the attention of the masses. So we decided to get you on our program once again, Mr. Wickramasinghe. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Mr. Wickramasinghe, now we know if you take a look at the IT sector as a whole, there was talks being done that through ETCA, if ETCA came to be, Mode 4, the free movement of persons, and the IT sector would be opened up and people would be coming here. If we saw State Minister of Finance Eran Wickramaratne making a statement to that extent, saying the discretion will be left with the Control General of Immigration. A lot of things have been said by the government. It's, as you say, it's very unclear to the general public as to where we are headed. With what you know, with your information about the ETCA, where are we standing? Are we going ahead with it, or is it stopped, or is Mode 4 taken out? What is happening?
We are going ahead. Actually, recently the Minister Malik Samarawickrama has stated that it will be finalized during June next year. I mean, there have been 6 rounds of negotiation with Indian team. So that's the situation right now, and they are discussing this Mode 4 as well, but also they are lying the general public and the stakeholders that we are not going to include that. And same time, if you consider the lead negotiator, Mr. KJ Veerasinghe, in an interview with a local newspaper, he had mentioned that there are 3 subcategories of Mode 4 has been already included, right, and only the last category, that independent professionals, has not been considered right now. But during her visit, Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, the Industry and Commerce Minister of India, now she is not the same minister because they had shuffle. Yes. She mentioned that we are going to implement Mode 4 step by step. So now already 3 subcategories out of 4 has been included in the agreement, and only independent professionals subcategory has not been included. But that can be the next step, as the Minister Nirmala Sitharaman explained.
It's going to be step by step.
Yes.
Now, when you take a look at the industry, the IT professionals, there is a tendency for IT professionals to look out into the world and say, look, here we are in a unique market, our capabilities are unique, we are of high standard, so we don't need people coming in from overseas and coming and taking the jobs here, because we are catering like Ceylon tea. Our Ceylon IT sector is also of a niche industry. Do you stand by that? Do you think that way?
Yes, kind of. Actually, what I say is, what we say is, rather than what I say, what we say is, the industry is growing due to a particular reason. That is because we have a niche benefit, and due to attract that niche benefit, the investors are investing in the industry, both local entrepreneurs and foreign entrepreneurs, foreign direct investment. So they are coming here after evaluating India. So that here we have to understand. So because let's say a person from Western world want to invest in this region. So he will first evaluate India, then he will look for other options. So then he comes to Sri Lanka. So then we have to have some niche benefit over India to that happen. Otherwise he will go to the India where you have a lot of professionals available and where you have a huge economy. So why they are coming is due to 2 reasons, that is low cost production and top tier talent. And in the IT industry, the top tier talent and the low cost production both are maintained with the right salary level, because right people or the capable people are entering into the industry due to satisfactory salary level. So, but if you open the gates to Indians, what would happen is the salary level will be dropped. So that will reduce the quality and also the the current enthusiasm with the youth to enter into the stream. So that will reduce the, I mean, not only because the Indian IT professionals, the local graduates itself won't be that much interested in the IT sector.
Mr. Wickramasinghe, what happens if this ETCA was not the ETCA with India and the ETCA with Singapore, maybe ETCA with a different country where once again IT professionals are? Is the problem there because this is India?
Yes, it's like this. So I mean, there are countries that our professionals would like to go and work. I mean, for such countries, we don't oppose. For example, there was a meeting in the ministry, so I attended there, and they were talking about free trade agreement with Singapore, and they said that we don't speak mode 4 with them. So I said, for IT industry, please open mode 4 for Singapore, and try to grab opportunities for Sri Lankan IT professionals to work in Singapore, because we can work there for work permits, and our professionals are like to do that. But they were surprised to hear that. Then they said, no, we can't do that, because if we do that, we have to do the same thing for India. So I said, so in the guise of liberalization, you are taking away our opportunities, because we have to select which country we have to target for these free trade agreements. So I mean, with India, we have a huge issue, because we are just a 80 billion economy, and India is 2000 billion economy in GDP wise. So if we open gates with such huge country, and there will be a huge flow of goods and services to Sri Lanka from that country, so that will kill our local industries. So therefore, it is very important to enter into agreements with small countries where we can cope with, and where we can grab some opportunities. But if you consider India, the biggest concern is they have excess capital and also low cost production, and both benefits are with them. But if you consider another country like Australia or England, like at least we would have low cost production compared to them. Then we can try to sell something to their country. But if you consider an agreement with India or China, we don't have any advantage. And what if we are talking about comparative advantage? So Sri Lanka has comparative advantage in tea industry and apparel industry, but we can't sell them to India, because they also have comparative advantage in those industries. Yes. So this is not a natural marriage if you try to
put it in that way.
So we have to. That is because we don't have a national trade policy, and we have not done a feasibility study. We have not analyzed this.
Just for the sake of going into an agreement, we are trying to go into ETCA.
And because this is, I think, they have knocked our door. So we are trying to open the door. We have not analyzed what is the impact. So that is the situation. I mean, even
Mr. Wickramasinghe, I have to interrupt you there, and we have to go into a short commercial break. You're watching Biz First in Focus. As you can see, Mr. Wickramasinghe is very vocal about the subject we are talking. We'll be right back after this short commercial break. Welcome back to Biz First in Focus. We are in discussion with Mr. Lasantha Wickramasinghe, the Secretary of the Association of IT Professionals here in Sri Lanka, regarding ETCA. Now, before we went into the break, Mr. Wickramasinghe brought in an interesting point and said this is an unnatural marriage. India is knocking on our door, and we are trying to open it up without doing any feasibility study, without doing any research into the matter. But I want to, before we go into the details of that, I want to ask you, I want to take a step back and ask you a question from our previous round. You said, Mr. Wickramasinghe, look, if Indian people come here and work, the quality of our product will drop, because our youth will not have an interest to work, because the salary levels will drop. But let's take that example, and let's say you also said our people would like to go to countries like Singapore, England, Australia and work there. Once again, isn't the same thing happening? The country as Sri Lanka, we will not be left with any IT professionals. All of the people with the talent, the people who are able to work, will be in Australia, England or Singapore, wherever the government decides to have a free trade agreement. Will that not happen?
No, it don't happen. I mean, what is happening right now is many people are migrating, because you know what the countries like Australia does is when they have some shortages, they give visas. So they are migrating permanently and they are not coming back, and the entire generations are going there. So what we suggest is to negotiate trade agreements with them and try to have this work permit. Then they will go for 3 years or 5 years, and then they will come back with some foreign exposure as well.
Right.
That will boost the industry as well. I mean, that will bring some foreign exchange. Right now we are just sending our mothers to Middle East to earn foreign exchange around $3.5 billion annually, and we are selling our Hambantota for 1 billion only. That is for 99 years. And mothers are sending here 3.5 billion per year. So that's the situation in our economy. So those numbers are very important. So if you just analyze those numbers, you will see what we are doing and where we are heading towards.
Mr. Vikramasinghe, it is important that before you do anything, even if you build a addition to your house, you would do a feasibility study. You would see how much of expenses would go and what is the damage. It's surprising to hear that the government has not been able to carry out the feasibility. We have seen many such cases. Even in the Central Expressway matter, the feasibility study is a question mark. So yes, the government has done it, but it is very surprising, don't you think, for a government to not look into the principle, the basic things, the fundamentals of doing a free trade agreement.
Yeah, it's very surprising, and I don't know whether it's as Mr. K.J. Veerasinghe, the lead negotiator, mentioned, is a totally political decision from the high-ranking leaders in the two countries. Maybe that's the reason that they didn't want to do a feasibility study. I don't know. But even in that case, those economists, at least voluntarily, would have done a feasibility study. So as responsible people, before we opposed this, we did a feasibility study on our own way. So
the IT professionals.
Yes, we are not economists, but we learned, we read. Right. We stay late night, we wake up early in the morning to study, and we wrote a book and we published it called ETCA Nayak Akramanike. So, and then the many economists came out and said this is the best book on the subject so far. I mean, we didn't expect to hear that, but that was the case when you have kind of a commitment to country. So, and you must have a responsibility before you say something. So we are, as you said, we are vocal and we are expressing this in public. So we have to bear the responsibility for what we say. Definitely. So before that we have to study, and we have written them and we have published them. Now those people are answerable to this, and we have named who are the culprits here.
What is the feasibility study that has been done now? We saw the GMOA also coming forward and saying, look, we have also studied about the ETCA, this is what we have published, and that was it.
Yeah.
Now you're coming here and saying, look, we have done a book, we have stayed up all night, we have got up in the morning and we have studied the matter, and this is what we have. What have you found out? What do you have in that book?
Yes, I think it's very important that you mentioned the GMO, about GMO book also. We have referred to that also in our study, and what they have mentioned is right process. So they were very I mean, clear on what to do and how to do, and it was very rational suggestions. And I mean, if you consider this one, how to design, negotiate and implement a free trade agreement in Asia, which is published by Asian Development Bank. This is not a institute against free trade agreement, but they have suggested a very much similar process as GMO also has suggested. I don't think GMO are referred to this when they do that, but they just use the common sense.
Right.
But the same thing has been done by very similar things, and with much detail may be done by Asian Development Bank. I don't think our negotiation team or the ministry has referred to this one. This is particularly written for Asia. So if a country are negotiating, so they have to refer these and they have to use these guidelines. So what we did was a bit more economic. So it's very I mean, even though we are not economists, we thought in very simplest way. So if we are going to do a free trade agreement, so where the results will be reflected, that those results will be reflected in the external sector of the annual central bank report. Then we have to study the current status of our external sector. then we have to study the impact of ETCA and how the external sector will be changed. So then external sector is explained in the balance of payment account.
Yes.
So balance of payment account, we have three categories: current account, capital account, and financial account. So just forget about capital account. We have, because it is just a small account, like $50 billion. Sorry, $50 million or something like that. So current account we have four categories. That is goods trading of goods, services, secondary income, and the primary income. So in the current account, we have trade deficit of $9 billion annually, $9 billion. And what we do is we earn around $3 billion from services, then around $7 billion US dollars from foreign remittance. So you can see what is happening there. So we are making a huge trade gap by selling goods, and foreign remittance is there to cope up with that. So then you have to think of, if we sign ETCA, what would happen? So what they are suggesting is to reduce the tariff barriers for 90% of goods from India and China. Okay, what would happen? So their cost of production is less. So then we will start importing more and more goods from India and China. So that will also that will increase our trade deficit. And if you consider, our trade deficit with India itself is around 3.5 billion annually. So it is around 4.5% of our GDP annual trade deficit with India. So if we reduce these tariff barriers, so this deficit will be more.
But Mr. Wickramasinghe, this is something very simple, if I may say it that way. Why can't the government see what you are seeing?
That's the problem. I mean, there must be, I think ETCA is a conspiracy, because that's why you don't do a feasibility study. So please show us the feasibility study that you have done. So, or at least answer this. So I mean, for the government and the officials and the negotiation team, what I have to say is, you are totally responsible for this country and our people, because you are killing these people. So economists, you might have the doctorates or professor, you might be a professor, but if you must have integrity first. So that's what lack in Sri Lanka. We don't have people with integrity. So they are working with some agendas of other countries or something. That's the issue.
People who lack integrity. That is the issue in our country. This is what Mr. Wickramasinghe is saying about all the findings he has done and his association has done with regard to ETCA. We will be discussing further into this. Stay with us. You are watching Biz First in Focus. Welcome back to Biz First in Focus. We are in discussion about the ETCA here in Sri Lanka. Mr. Wickramasinghe, who is the secretary of the Association of IT Professionals, has been bringing in very interesting points with regard to how ETCA has come through and why a feasibility study has not been done. This is, of course, according to what Mr. Wickramasinghe says. He says his association and himself will be taking full responsibility for what he has been saying on the program. I want to ask you, Mr. Wickramasinghe, a very simple question. Obviously, when you do a transaction, be it just to one party, someone gets an advantage of the other. But what is the advantage here of ETCA for India? Why Sri Lanka? Why do they have to come here and knock on our door?
I think that's a very important question, because if you consider India, they are doing most of trade with China, and but they don't even have a simple free trade agreement with China. That is because they have a trade deficit with China. And when Indian President Jinping visited India on 2014. Chinese President visited India on 2014. Prime Minister of India, Honorable Narendra Modi, requested him to assist them to reduce their trade deficit with China. So what is their trade deficit? Their trade deficit is around $50 billion. So that is around 2.5% of their GDP. And that is the problem they are having with China. And they are having a continuous dialogue with China
to reduce that.
They are not going into a trade agreement with China. And if that, but our economists are talking about we can have big markets if we sign an agreement with China and India. But those two countries are not going to have.
Why not? Why not?
That is because for the simple reason, and India is fear because the natural flow of goods and services are from China to India, not the other way around. So therefore, they don't want to enter into an agreement.
Same reason what you have mentioned in the book.
Yes, and they, I mean, if India signed an agreement with China, at least in the size wise, they are little bit equal. I mean, India is a 2,000 billion or 2 trillion economy, and China is around 10 trillion economy, and we are just 80 billion economy. And if we sign an agreement with those two giants,
will be submerged, will be underground.
I don't know what will happen. I mean, they will take the entire control of our country. Even if you consider this energy sector, so India is very interesting in investing in our energy sector, and you can see what is happening these days. So they will have the remote control of our country. So that's why when the Indian Prime Minister visited Sri Lanka, we have an alliance called Professionals National Front, where GMOA and Inland Revenue, Custom unions and railway unions, University Teachers Association, and we all have got together to work on this subject. And we wrote to the Prime Minister of India requesting give some freedom to our people to analyze this, and not
any response.
No, but that it was published in media at least. So
Indian media.
No, in Sri Lankan media. But we hope that that had some influence, because at least the embassy would have read, and and I mean, we have to fight to safeguard this country, because the people who are responsible are trying to destroy this country.
Mr. Wickramasinghe, when you take a look at free trade agreements, everyone talks about the free trade agreements in Singapore. Everyone says that is the model. But we know that Singapore was successful because of its link to the other East Asian countries, Malaysia, countries above it and below it. Similarly, even though we are not connected to India geographically, India is right above us and everything funnels to us through India. So if we just leave the deficit aside, isn't there anything advantageous, anything positive through ETCA? Everything seems to be doom and gloom according to what you're saying.
Yeah, only advantage that we will be having is that will reduce our prices of goods, because what you get is you get some goods from India and China. So, but instead of that, we will lose our industries. So we will reduce our income as well. I mean, so simply we will start consuming Indian and Chinese products. And if you consider, it's like this: there are some multinationals in Sri Lanka today, right? So they are here to get the market access by producing in Sri Lanka. So if you just simply remove the trade barriers or tariff barriers, so they will see it's much profitable to manufacture in India, where they are already having a plant, and export it to Sri Lanka. So we will lose some job opportunities as well. And local industries, they won't be able to cope up with those flood of goods and services from India, because actually the cost of production is higher in Sri Lanka. That's why you need to have some tariff barriers to safeguard them. So you know the case with the potato farmers. So in the season we increase the tax, but in an agreement we can't do that. So if we just put one line, so we have to commit to that. Then when the industry is dying, so government can't intervene, because you have an agreement. So that's the problem. And also we have to have this national treatment clause. If some investor comes down here or a service provider comes down here, we have to treat him as a national in Sri Lanka. So we can't have we can't demarcate that. So that's
another point is, Mr. Wickramasinghe, now if you take a look at the situation, if you have a brother, an elder brother, what will happen is anything you discuss with the elder brother, it will always be the elder brother's point that is taken. Even the parents would listen to the elder brother because he's senior. Similarly, we have a outlook towards India that it is our elder brother, the bigger country. So any agreement that is in ETCA, what we are discussing right now, will it be advantageous to India? Will it have a vast impact? Can India say, no, this is what we want, Sri Lanka, we are not going to listen to you? Can that happen?
I can't say yes and no, but that is the, I mean, what we can say is we can't influence India at least. So if there is an agreement, so what we can do is very little. I mean, I think the problem is our people are guilty of not having a national trade policy and not having a feasibility study. If they had done those things, I mean, they can at least show them. So this is what will happen to our economy if we do this. But they have not done that. And also there are some issues. I mean, there are a lot of things to be done here. We don't have regulatory bodies. Require regulatory bodies to regulate. For example, IT professionals. So we have to. If you have to include IT in this agreement, we have to sign a mutual recognition agreement with some authority in India and Sri Lankan authority, and we don't have such authority right now in Sri Lanka, and we don't have identify what is the relevant authority to sign those agreements, because and what is who is a software engineer is, what is the definition, so who is an engineer, so those problems are there.
The basics are not
there in Sri Lanka, so that to implement all this will take years. So but the government is in a hurry to
run this through.
Yeah.
Mr. Wickramasinghe, thank you very much for being here with us on today's Biz First in Focus. The main attention was that if the government did its part regarding what was need to be done in the ETCA agreement and any free trade agreement, everything will be okay. Then at least the government will know what to do and where the country is heading. This has not been done, and that is what these professional bodies, the GMOA, the Association of IT Professionals in Sri Lanka, are trying to get across to the general public. So once again, Mr. Wickramasinghe, thank you very much for being here. It has been interesting talking to you for the second time. That's all we have for you from the Biz First in Focus desk. Thank you very much for watching. We'll be joining you next week as well with an interesting guest. Thank you. I've been Saturang Hapuarachi.